Hey everyone, welcome back to the channel. Today's story is one that reminds us how a single act of kindness can change lives in ways we never imagine. It's about a hardworking single father, a cold evening, and a homeless old man who seemed like just another forgotten face on the street. But what happened after that small act of kindness shocked an entire community. On the edge of a busy city lived a man named Daniel. Daniel wasn't rich. In fact, life had never been easy for him. Every morning before the sun rose, he was already awake, quietly getting ready for work while the rest of the neighborhood was still asleep. He worked long shifts as a maintenance worker at a local office building, doing whatever needed to be done, cleaning hallways, fixing broken pipes, repairing lights, and carrying heavy equipment up and down stairs, but Daniel never complained. Because every exhausting day had a reason behind it. His 8-year-old daughter, Lily. Ever since Lily's mother passed away 3 years earlier after a sudden illness, Daniel had been both father and mother to the little girl. He packed her school lunches, braided her hair in the morning even though he never quite got it right, and read bedtime stories every night no matter how tired he was. Money was always tight. Some weeks Daniel had to carefully decide which bills to pay first. Rent, groceries, electricity, everything had to be balanced like a fragile puzzle. Still, Daniel always told Lily the same thing: kindness costs nothing, he would say. And sometimes it's the most valuable thing you can give. One chilly evening in late autumn, Daniel finished his shift later than usual. The air outside had grown cold, and a soft wind pushed dry leaves across the sidewalk as he walked toward the small bus stop a few blocks away. He was tired, hungry, and thinking about getting home to Lily. In his backpack was a small container of leftover pasta he had packed from home earlier that morning. He had planned to eat it on his way back, since dinner at home would be simple that night, but as Daniel approached the bus stop, he noticed someone sitting quietly on the bench. It was an old man. The man looked thin and tired. His gray beard was messy, and his coat looked far too worn to protect him from the cold wind. His shoes were scuffed, and beside him sat a small bag that looked like it contained everything he owned. People passed by without even glancing at him, some walked faster, others looked down at their phones. To most people, he was invisible. Daniel slowed down as he approached. He had seen homeless people before, but something about this man felt different. The old man wasn't asking anyone for money. He wasn't speaking. He simply sat there quietly, staring at the ground as the wind rustled through the empty street. Daniel sat on the other end of the bench while waiting for the bus. For a moment, neither of them said anything. Then Daniel noticed the old man's hands trembling slightly from the cold. Without thinking too much about it, Daniel reached into his backpack and pulled out the container of pasta. He looked at the man and said softly, "Sir, have you eaten today?" The old man slowly looked up. His eyes were tired but kind. He hesitated for a moment before shaking his head. Daniel smiled gently and handed him the container. "It's not much," Daniel said, "but it's warm." The old man stared at the food as if he couldn't believe it. For a moment he didn't take it. "Are you sure?" the man asked quietly. Daniel nodded. "Of course. I can eat later." Finally the old man accepted the container. His hands shook slightly as he opened it. He took a small bite, then another, and soon he was eating quickly, as if he hadn't had a real meal in days. Daniel pretended not to notice so the man wouldn't feel embarrassed. After a few minutes, the old man looked up again. "Thank you," he said sincerely. "Most people don't stop." Daniel shrugged. "My daughter says sharing makes food taste better." That made the old man smile. They sat in silence for a while longer as the city lights flickered on around them. Before the bus arrived, the old man spoke again. "You're a good man," he said. Daniel chuckled. "I'm just a tired dad trying to get home." The bus pulled up with a loud hiss of air brakes. Daniel stood up, slinging his backpack over his shoulder. Before stepping onto the bus, he turned back and said, "Stay warm tonight, sir." The old man nodded slowly. "Someday," he said quietly, "I hope I can repay your kindness." Daniel smiled politely, assuming it was just something people say. "Take care," he replied, then boarded the bus and disappeared into the city traffic. He never imagined that moment would change his life. The next morning began like every other. Daniel woke Lily up for school, made simple scrambled eggs, and walked her to the bus stop. After giving her a quick hug, He headed to work, but when he arrived at the office building where he worked, something unusual caught his attention. Parked outside the building were several expensive black cars. People in suits stood near the entrance speaking into phones. Inside the lobby, the atmosphere felt different, tense, almost excited. Daniel walked over to one of the security guards. "What's going on?" he asked. The guard looked surprised. "You didn't hear? The owner of the building is coming today." Daniel blinked. "The owner?" The guard nodded. "Yeah. The guy who owns the entire company. Apparently he's been away for months and suddenly decided to visit." Daniel shrugged and grabbed his maintenance cart. He had work to do. Throughout the morning, the building buzzed with activity. Managers walked quickly through the halls, employees whispered nervously, and the cleaning crew polished every surface until it shined. Around noon, Daniel was fixing a flickering light in the lobby when the front doors opened. Everyone suddenly stood straighter. Several men in suits walked in first, then someone else stepped through the door. Daniel nearly dropped his screwdriver, because walking slowly through the lobby, dressed in a clean tailored suit, was the same old man from the bus stop. The homeless man. Daniel stared in disbelief. The man looked completely different now. His gray hair was neatly combed, his posture confident, and people around him treated him with deep respect. Employees whispered among themselves, "That's him. That's the founder. That's the millionaire owner." Daniel's mind spun. The old man walked through the lobby, greeting managers and executives. Then suddenly, he stopped. His eyes had landed on Daniel. For a moment the entire room went silent. The old man smiled. "Hello again," he said warmly. Daniel stood frozen. The executives looked confused. "You two know each other?" one asked. The old man nodded. "Yes," he said. "This man shared his dinner with me last night when he believed I had nothing." A murmur spread across the lobby. Daniel felt his face turning red. "It was just food," he said quickly, but the old man shook his head. "No," he replied softly. "It was kindness." He turned to the executives. "Do you know how many people walked past me yesterday?" No one answered. "Hundreds," the man continued. "But only one person stopped." Then he looked at Daniel again. "What is your name?" "Daniel," he said nervously. The old man extended his hand. "My name is Edward Grant." Daniel shook his hand slowly. Edward then turned to the stunned managers. "From today forward," he said calmly, "I want Daniel moved into a supervisory role in building operations." Gasps echoed through the lobby, and, Edward added, "His salary will be doubled." Daniel's jaw dropped. "Sir, I didn't do anything for a reward." Edward smiled gently. "That's exactly why you deserve one." But Edward wasn't finished. He knelt slightly to look Daniel in the eye. "You reminded me of something I almost forgot," he said quietly. "That the best people in this world are often the ones no one notices." Daniel stood speechless. Over the next few weeks, Daniel's life slowly began to change. His new position meant better pay and shorter hours. For the first time in years, he could breathe financially. He bought Lily new school supplies. He fixed the leaking roof in their apartment, and one evening he even surprised her with pizza and a movie night. But the biggest surprise came a month later. One afternoon, Daniel was called into Edward Grant's office. The millionaire sat behind a large desk, smiling. "I've been thinking about something," Edward said. Daniel shifted nervously. "Did I do something wrong?" Edward laughed. "No, Daniel. You did something right." He slid a document across the desk. "I'm starting a community food program for people in need," Edward said. "And I want you to help me run it." Daniel looked stunned. "Me?" Edward nodded. "Because the person who gave away his only meal understands hunger better than any executive ever will." Daniel felt emotion building in his chest. He accepted the paper slowly, and from that moment forward, the program began feeding hundreds of people every week, all because one tired father chose kindness on a cold evening. So the next time you see someone who seems invisible to the world, remember this story. You never know who they might be, but more importantly, you never know how powerful a simple act of kindness can become. Thanks for watching, and if this story touched your heart, don't forget to like, subscribe, and share it with someone who believes kindness still matters. We'll see you in the next video.